Snow White, How to Destroy Your Own Movie. They're making a new Snow White? Oh yeah, they said they were making a new Snow White, but they got rid of the dwarfs, right? With no dwarfs? So it's Snow White and the 7 people?
You know, sometimes in life you just can't catch a break, and it seems like everything you do to try to fix the situation only ends up pushing things from bad to worse to catastrophic. Like, I once saw a drunk guy stagger out of a late night takeaway with a kebab in hand, only to lose his grip on his prized lump of artery-clogging saturated meat and fumble to catch it before it fell to the ground, causing him to lose his balance and stumble face first into a plate glass window. And thinking about that poor unfortunate drunken soul who had to retreat home with no food, a bloody nose, bruised ego, and the mocking laughter of me and my friends ringing in his ear.
I don't know why it's so much funnier the second time. God, bro, that shit was good.
I'm reminded of Snow White actress Rachel Zegler, who seems to be single-handedly tanking the box office prospects of her multi-million-dollar movie, to the point where even industry experts are warning that she's rapidly turning into box office poison. See, one of the weird little side effects of the current Hollywood strikes is that there's not a whole lot of news and controversy coming out of Tinsel.
Yeah, there's nothing else happening, so people are getting fired up over Snow White. Who gives a fuck about Snow White? That shit was boring when I was 7. Like, I remember watching that and I'm like, oh my god, when is this shit gonna be over?
Town right now, which has given the internet a bit more time to reflect on other things, like past interviews on the subject of Snow White that were largely ignored at the time, but have soon come back to haunt Disney and Rachel in recent weeks. And holy shit, have they provided fertile ground for backlash and mockery.
What happened?
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely
Did it come out in 1937?
wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Well, why not? What's wrong with getting saved by the prince? What the hell?
She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power. I'm gonna stand there 18 hours.
I'm trying to remember what even originally happened. Well, no, I mean, I don't really think that makes sense, though. Because, like, it's not like whenever it came out, it was a period piece. It's not like this was like, because in 1937, people couldn't afford dirt. Because it was like the Great Depression and shit. You see what I mean, right? So, like, there's World War II. No, that was like a bit after that. World War II didn't come out until, like, 5 years after. I mean, it was whatever, right? It was like in 1939, then Pearl Harbor's in 41. Whenever Snow White came out, it was about like medieval times. Did anybody in Snow White have a gun? I don't think people had cars in Snow White, did they? They had like horses and shit, right? Yeah, like horses and carriages. So like, back in the day, the reality is that guys ran everything and women didn't really do a whole lot. That's just how it was back then. So if you tell a medieval story and it doesn't go like that, well, then it's not really accurate. It's not really true to what it was. And that's fine. You can tell a fantasy story. That's okay. But I don't think that this was really a product of it being 1937. It was a product of it being a movie that was built off of the fucking Middle Ages. I don't know. I mean, am I crazy here? I mean, it does seem like this girl has the biggest chip on her shoulder. Absolutely. She doesn't like the movie. She's making it again. but she wants it to be totally different. Snow White isn't even in a movie. The prince is the main protagonist.
In a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
But it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way.
Well, I mean, why is that good that she doesn't have anybody to be in love? What's wrong with these people? What is wrong with them? Like, I don't understand this. Why? Crazy? Yeah, like, why? It's just like did she just get over, like, a breakup or something? And this is, like, a way to just, like, express herself? I don't get it.
Way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Shite.
Who's Andrew? Who the fuck's Andrew?
Shite. Oh, yes. That's shite.
No offense, Rachel, but you're making it pretty tough for
prince?
people to like you. Now, I don't pretend to know what exactly was going on in her head when she said stuff like this. Maybe she was just a bit nervous and overwhelmed by all the attention and didn't know how to respond with the kind of slick, blandly diplomatic answers that a more experienced celebrity might have given. Maybe it's because she's young and idealistic and just blurted out the first thing that came into her head about the movie and the character. And so I don't really want to dump on her too much for all this controversy. Yeah, she's definitely creating the impression of a spoiled, entitled, narcissistic actor who totally doesn't appreciate the amazing opportunity she's been given. Yeah, her comments on the actors' strike were pretty poorly judged for someone getting paid more from one movie than most actors make in their entire lives. And yeah, the things she's saying about Snow White make it seem like the very antithesis of the animated classic that stood the test of time, a lot better than her own movies likely to. But really, when you get right down to it, she's just another dumb actor saying what she thinks people want to hear.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that actors are not politicians. They don't fucking know. Like, you ask an actor about what they think about something like this, you might as well go ask an electrician. Go ask a school bus driver. That's like the same level of fucking understanding that is intrinsic to the job. What the fuck? Yeah, go ask a janitor. Like, why do people care so much about what actors think about a social issue?
Bigger problem is the studio culture that someone like Zegler represents, because you can bet your left arse cheek that most of these talking points were handed to her directly by the PR people at Disney. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, like, do you think that's true? I don't know. I feel like Disney probably doesn't want them to talk about any of this shit. Because, like, Disney's already had a lot of recent controversies. So, like, if I was Disney, I bet they would probably say, don't fucking talk about this shit. And then she goes on and talks about it. I mean, they could be trying to do, like, a all publicity is good publicity strat, where it's like, okay, we're going to say a bunch of really controversial stuff that gets people mad so they'll watch the show. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Might not have phrased them in the most elegant way, but the sentiment they represent is dead on brand for a company that's become the studio equivalent of a snake eating its own tail, desperately cannibalizing their back catalogue of classic movies in an increasingly futile
I watched the Aladdin live action one. I thought it was okay.
attempt to stay relevant. See, when it comes to their other live-action remakes of animated movies, they were generally smart enough to stay pretty quiet about the little changes they were sneaking in for modern audiences. Yeah, sometimes actors and writers would slip up and say a bit more than they were supposed to, and things got a bit more overt with Peter Pan and The Little Mermaid.
That was fun.
But for the most part, they were content to pay tribute to the originals and market the remakes as respectful adaptations.
Yeah, sure.
Right from the off, though, they seem to have taken a very different approach with Snow White.
Am I the only person that doesn't want a remake of these old cartoons? Like, I don't want a remake of this. It was good then, it's good now, it's still fucking good. What are we doing?
Feels like they're making a concerted effort to cast the original movie as some horribly dated relic of a bygone era.
Yeah, I remember watching, like, I remember seeing this and, like, I don't remember there being anything really bad about it. Shit. Yeah, I thought it was a movie for girls. I was like, what's this bullshit?
supposed to look back on and laugh at with the benefit of our modern enlightened hindsight. Rachel certainly doesn't think much of it, and neither does Gal Gadot if their interviews are anything to go by. And
well, she's not gonna, I mean, to be fair, it's not like she's gonna go and like actively debate her about this in front of the interview. I mean, she's just like, yeah, you're totally right. Okay, are we done? Great, I've gotta go. Like, that's probably the way she feels about it. Like, I wouldn't even believe, because she's not going out and saying this on her own. Yeah, and also Wonder Woman, that was because she was in Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was pretty good.
There's something weirdly outdated now about turning the main character into this fanatically independent, power-hungry girl boss who doesn't need a man. Yeah. It's the kind of talking points that were all the rage 5 or 6 years ago when this whole movement in Hollywood was still in its infancy, but that was then and this is now. The strong female lead isn't the fresh new concept it was back in 2016. In fact, even in the mainstream media, there's a growing acceptance that this kind of bland, superficial archetype has run its course, to the point where it's become kind of a meme in its own right. Either way though, I can't help wondering...
Well, I think people see it and it doesn't seem realistic. And that's why people don't buy into this kind of stuff in the same level. It's like, this is just like, back in, especially if it's a dated period, it's like a period piece of like the old times. It just didn't happen that often. Like, let's be real.
Is this really the attitude you want to display towards one of the most beloved...
And also, I think like another one of the problems is that a lot of times with these characters, they push for these characters because they want these characters to be representative of like something positive. And because they want the character to be representative of something positive, they don't give the character a lot of negative traits or bad values or weaknesses, because they don't want people to see the character as weak in any capacity. So you create a character that's good at everything, that never does anything that's morally ambiguous, and can never be wrong or can never lose, because if it did, then it would destroy the goal that the character is there to create. So, like, that's what the problem is.
Animated movies of all time, the one that literally made Disney what it is today? Do you really want to be seen shitting on the accomplishments of previous generations when your own efforts are probably never going to reach the same heights of cultural influence?
It's never going to be the same. People are going to remember this shit in 100 years.
Because at a certain point, it really just comes across as a jealous, envious attempt to drag down other people's work rather than elevating your own. As Mahler so aptly put it in one of his videos, this isn't a passing of the torch, it's a torching of the past. It's
that's clever, I like that, smart.
Deliberate attempt to rewrite history and destroy the legacy.
Mahler's the guy that did an 8-hour video about how Dark Souls 2 was bad. I've watched the entire thing twice. He's a really smart guy. I love him.
Of the thing you're so desperate to supplant, while conveniently forgetting that there's a reason movies like Snow White have been enjoyed by generations of audiences. Yep. The stories they told are timeless and universal, instead of trying to catch the ever-changing winds of the political and social zeitgeist. They weren't written for modern audiences, they were written for every audience from the 1930s to the 2020s, and that's precisely why they worked so well. And as much as you and your friends might look down on them and mock them for not aligning with whatever fads and trends happen to be the current thing, the inconvenient truth is that they'll still be remembered long after your own lesser efforts have been forgotten.
Well, of course, because the shows that are remembered for a very, very long period of time are... I think the stories that are the most well-remembered and the stories that resonate the best with people for the longest period of time are the ones that reveal some sort of internal truth. There is like a core internal truth to something like a lot of the Greek myths or the Bible, things in the Bible, the Green Mile, movies that were really, really good. Let me think. Lord of the Rings, I think this is a very big one. And The Matrix, The Matrix is another very, very recent one. People will be watching and think The Matrix is cool in 50 years. People are still using Red Pill to this day, non-stop. They're using it probably more now than they did 10 years ago. And so these types of stories are what is interesting. And so you cannot tell a story that is contrary to just the core human truth of existence and then expect for it to have any sort of staying power. Because the best that can do is just be interesting for a conversation piece, and then people forget about it. That's what I think.
Are but a passing ripple in the pond of history, whereas they are history.
Yeah, they are.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
All right, well, that was a nice video. What a nice guy. I don't think I've watched a lot of his videos. I remember this guy was named the Critical Drinker. I'll give it a like and give him a sub. Was named as one of the axes of evils on on some website for like commentary content. And I can see obviously like where the angle here is coming from, but holy fuck. Some of these people are just crazy drinkers. Funny. Yeah, I think it's great. And I can always appreciate and respect somebody who can make a video only 6 minutes long. But I think that's really what stories are, that's where the best stories come from. Is stories that, like, they reveal some type of internal truth that people know to be real and it is true to them. So you can't write something that is, that's like antithetical to like nature or core human behavior and then expect it to have any staying power or to have anybody remember it or care about it. Because it doesn't reveal anything. People don't read it and think to themselves, oh yeah, this is just like, like they can't relate real events to that. They can't compare it to anything. They can just make new content. Yeah, but if they make new content, nobody's gonna watch it. That's really just the truth. Like they have to co-opt the old stories and then try to use those because nobody's going to watch the new content. It's Disney. They're not making this to be woke. They're making it purely for capitalistic reasons. It refreshes copyright and IP. That's it. They don't care about anything else. Yeah, well, if that was the only reason, then why wouldn't they just try to make it true to form anyway, right? Like, I mean, you still have to get people together and do one direction, so they go in this direction instead. Like, you could definitely be right, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I still don't think that's necessarily a complete excuse. Why would you make exactly the same movie again? Because that's what people want to see.